Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Deborah Price. I'm the founder and CEO of the Money Coaching Institute, and this is Conversations About Money. And today I have a wonderful guest whose name is Tammy Shweiger. Tammy is a certified money coach, and she's based in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I was really excited to interview you, Tammy, because you have such a unique perspective and how you came to the work and what you're doing. First as an accountant and then moving into you became a yogini and yoga was a major love and practice and now you found a way to somehow integrate these. So I'm really excited to hear more about that. So tell me a bit about where you are right now in terms of your practice and how you've managed to pull these different aspects of yourself together.
Yeah, so my practice currently is I'm in private practice. My practice is called Mindful Money. And I work with individuals, couples, and then I also do workshops from time to time for different companies and nonprofits.
Beautiful. And
Yeah.
how did you end up sort of also bringing somehow the yoga and your yogini practice? Do you actually do money coaching where you integrate that archetypally, or how does that shown up for you in terms of your practice?
Yeah, I would equate it to almost a little bit for people who are not practicing yoga themselves. It's a little bit of hide the vegetables. Like I'm sort of
Mhm.
integrating yoga philosophy, yoga dharma into my sessions, but it's not necessarily something that I highlight or, for someone who really is interested in yoga and is a yoga practitioner, then we might, talk about it in more concrete terms. But I found, at least in my yoga education and then in my money coaching education, that there are many overlaps that are, they're right there. Things like um, self-compassion, non-judgment, examining the ego, focusing on what's going on in your mat and not your neighbor's mat, focusing on what's going on in your money
Absolutely.
journey and not your neighbor's money journey. So there's really a lot there that sort of, really organically lends itself to the conversations I have with all my clients.
That's beautiful. You're one of the few coaches that I've heard actually bring the concept of Dharma into your work. And money coaching is my dharma, and so therefore I relate highly to the idea of dharma and one's path and how we're being in the world in general. Do you see money coaching also as a dharma path for you as well?
Yeah, I think it's it might sound a little corny, but I think it's the path I was always on. I just didn't know it.
Mm.
Sort of, you kind of touched on like where I started my career and how I ended up where I am now. I had a very linear path that I took in school, and it wasn't natural to me. It was forced.
Mm.
And so it was, take the steps, go to college, choose the bachelor's. Okay, it's accounting, got to get a master's, got to get a CPA, got to work for a public firm. And I was so unhappy. I was exhausted. And so at a certain point, I just said, I'm not going to do this anymore. But I didn't follow a linear path. I didn't try to figure out what my next step would be. I started getting curious and returning to some of the things that I had been curious about when I was a child. So I took a creative writing class. I took a painting class. I went
Love it.
and did a lot more yoga. Yoga for me used to be rushing to a 6 p.m. class, leaving work early.
Right.
And then I was able to, stay for the meditation after the class at lunchtime, all of those things, slow down,
Mm.
um, and explore. And that sort of led me to, standing in front of a room full of yoga students, which I had never thought I would do. And as I'm teaching, these concepts, I guess I'd heard the term financial wellness many times before, but it meant something different to me in those moments, like a light bulb went off. And then
Mm.
I went online to search for something that could help me continue connecting these dots, and that's when I found you.
Fabulous. I
Yeah.
love that. I'm always really amazed by how many people say, they knew they were looking for something different that would bring a whole nother level of connection with their clients and a much deeper level of fulfillment.
Hmm.
So often I find that it starts for people where there's this sort of inner restlessness or burnout or something in their current career. And then they start Googling, and next thing they know, they say, I found you, and the rest is history. So it sounds very similar for you.
Yeah, I would say that maybe it was even, deeper in the sense that I always knew that what I was interested in was people.
Hmm.
Um, I was always a little bit of a natural healer, or that,
Hmm.
that person, like you're sitting on a plane and you start off with the person next to you looks like they have got their sweatshirt over their head and they're looking out the window. They don't want to talk to anyone. And by the end of the flight, they've like told me something
Everything.
that they are surprised that they said out loud. Um, and I enjoy that, being creating that space for people and helping them understand themselves better as I learn to understand them better. Um, so the reason I think why this is feels like such the right place for me to be is because I'm utilizing my natural gifts, the things that, I feel I was always meant to do, in a way that is so needed, right? I mean, most people, when I explain to them what I do,
Oh, yeah.
they've still never heard of it. So there's just such a great need.
Yeah, it's so funny. I don't know why I just thought of this, but when you talk about being on the airplane and the person that everybody will end up talking to and telling you things that they may have never told anyone, it reminds me of I once was on a flight a few years ago where the same thing, only this time it was actually quite amazing. There was a woman who was crying she was on the outside and I had the window seat and she was clearly very upset and distressed and so I just said, is there something that I could help you with? Are you okay? And she just started spilling the beans that she was leaving her husband
Mm,
and that she didn't know what she was going to do. And she was really worried about money. And so I ended up like basically giving her a money coaching session on the flight. But about, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes into that conversation, a flight attendant came over and she said, you seem like you're really good at helping people. Do you mind if I bring someone else over? Literally, she brings a guy over whose mother died and asks him to sit I'm in the middle, and I've got a guy over here who's crying and grieving over the loss of his mother. He was headed to the funeral. And over here, I have the woman who's leaving her husband. And I looked at the flight attendant and I said, I do get paid for a living to do this. We should at least get free drinks. She was really funny. She goes, drinks are on the house from here on out, right? But it is something to just be someone who people automatically seem to have comfort expressing and telling you things. And of course, in our business, people tell us a lot of things that they might not openly share with others. Have
Mhm.
you found that to just be natural and easy for you as a coach too? And there's no like challenge ever getting to the point where people feel safe and comfortable sharing whatever with you?
Yeah, I mean, probably the best people to ask that question to would be, my clients.
Your
I
client.
hope, I hope that the answer is yes. I try to create that space. I hope that also, it comes naturally. And I do encourage people, when I meet them for consultations, like you're probably meeting with other people. If you aren't, I hope that you do, because it's important to choose someone to do this, to intimate work with someone that you connect with.
Yeah, and
Um,
feel safe with. I think
yeah,
safety is probably the number one thing.
yeah, I would agree. And that could be different for different people.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about just, first of all, how did money coaching change your life? Because, everybody who's a coach needs to be coached. Was there anything in particular that you felt you learned about yourself that you might not have known otherwise? I
Um,
know it's been a while.
yeah, no, I mean, I think about it all the time, especially when I'm taking clients through those first few sessions, and it reminds me of going through that process myself during the training. Um, yeah, I think that I I think I've always been a person who's been trying to understand myself better, and been in therapy for many years, but looking at our lives through the specific scope of money,
Hmm.
especially putting together a money biography, like seeing how those events like all together written down. Like I'm definitely like a narrative thinker and a writer. So seeing that on paper, I think helped me sort of almost like let go of it a little bit, right? Like
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
knowing that that maybe is something that each person is going to get out of that process because I went through it myself. Um, and then I would say also like self-compassion, right? Like you really want to lead by example and try to give yourself those gifts that you're encouraging your clients to give themselves. So speaking more kindly to myself and really becoming more aware of black and white thinking. I think that was a big thing that I've sort of developed in the last 6 years since starting my practice and having that training is letting go of black and white thinking, really looking for gray thinking and being less judgmental of myself and being less judgmental of others. I think those are some things that I've really cultivated further in the last 6 years.
Beautiful. I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, it's interesting. The longer I do this work, the more certain I am that if a person has a body of suffering or pain that they haven't processed and or they're holding themselves hostage to the past and they feel like they haven't done the right things with money. I'm not good with money. I don't have the money gene, whatever the story is about
Hmm.
that. If they don't work through it, it becomes very hard for them to actually create the life they want. It's like, it's almost as though it's like bad plumbing, until you get rid of the other stuff and clear that out, there's no room for what you really want to create to be born because there's no fertile soil. It's already contaminated with the past. And once you really resolve that and understand it, forgive it, release it, all that, then all of a sudden there's fertile soil again. Have you seen that with your own clients?
Yeah, and as you know, the question you just asked me, I saw it in myself. I was thinking back to, I made a big transition monetarily as well, right? Like leaving accounting,
Mhm.
especially at the point of my career I was at, was leaving a very reliable, great salary to start my own business, right? Like I need to reimagine money and my relationship to it very differently from a practical standpoint and in my marriage, right? Like money needs to be spent differently as a household.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think money coaching probably came to me at the right time to be able to um, handle that softly, right, with ease, because it's an identity shift too, right? Like, oh, what do you do? Oh,
Right.
I'm an accountant. I'm a CPA. Oh, what do you do? I teach yoga and I'm trying this thing out called called money coaching or, financial therapy. It's different. Um, so yeah, that's something that I absolutely try to help my clients cultivate for themselves is softness and ease um,
Mhm.
with the things that they're struggling with from their past and also the change that they're trying to cultivate in their present.
Absolutely. That was really beautifully said, by the way. You have a very nice way of articulating some of these things that I often find it's difficult for coaches. I mean, you've been at it for a while, but I find it's that coaches struggle with how to communicate about what we do
Mm.
because it's very nuanced and because it's a methodology, it's not like, blah, blah, blah. So I'm curious, how do you talk about money coaching to, an incoming client? How would you describe it?
Hmm. Well, how I usually describe it would probably, I think a lot of people who are right? They've reached a point where they're ready to get outside help. And I think that's like such a big and courageous step. And I think in that moment where they sign on to that Zoom, I think what's really helpful for them is if I'm as clear and concrete in process as possible. So I try to start with process. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with about 5 sessions where we're really going to focus on your relationship to money, who you are when it comes to money, how you develop the patterns and the behaviors that you develop. We're gonna look at your past, and we're gonna try to look at some of that past with compassion, without judgment. I'm gonna help you connect some dots that you probably haven't connected before, because that's part of my role in that part of the process. And then from there, we're gonna layer on the practical. We're gonna layer things on like looking at how looking at your spending, looking at your net worth and put together this mindful budget that brings
Mhm.
all of those things we learned about you, all that holistic knowledge with us. And then I let them ask whatever questions they have if they want to get, because people are interested in totally different things, right? Somebody's like, how many sessions until I'm fixed? Or,
Until I'm fixed. I love that one.
yeah,
Like you
until
can just
I'm
pull that
I'm
out of a
good.
hat, you know?
Yeah, and other people, are interested in totally different things. So, but I think that structure is really helpful for them to hear at that point in time.
Yeah. And by the way, for those who are listening, we don't fix people because we don't think you're broken. We hold
Right.
that
Yes.
everybody is already perfect, whole, and complete, and all of us have something that we need to, really just look at and become committed to resolving whatever it is. And for many clients, I don't know about yours, but a lot of my clients don't even have what I would call practical money issues at all. They're pretty good with money. They make plenty. They're pretty good at all the basic practical stuff. It's more the emotional and
Hmm.
behavioral stuff that is, I think, the real sticking point for most people. What's your experience around that, Ben?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I do both probably pretty heavily because I'm also relying on, my financial background. So I do work with a lot of people that are struggling with a lot of debt or some really big financial decisions that they're not
Mhm.
sure their financial resources can support. And of course, the very first place to go to support them is the things that you mentioned, Deborah, like their behaviors and I always say money is about emotional regulation, not math. Um,
Right, exactly.
so it's preparing them to be able to make those more practical choices in a way that aligns with what they really want.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I love it. So, how did you determine ultimately, you know, that this was your path and that you were going to leave, the accounting world? And that's it. And of course, at the point where you were at, as you said in your career, that was a big decision. How did that come about? And was there any challenge in your own relationship when you said, honey, I'm not going to have a paycheck for a while? How did that go?
Yeah, so my relationship like with my partner.
Mm.
Um yeah, when he and I met, I was studying for my CPA exam. So a long time ago. And I think from that, that initial time when we met, I think he could sense that it's not what lit me up. It wasn't my passion, and I am very fortunate to have a very supportive partner. So he was sort of jumping for joy almost. Like
Hey.
the financial changes, I think he almost made them with more ease than I did because I was still struggling with some identity shifts and some shame around letting go of that part of myself. So I think I would say he was really instrumental in helping me meet that new part of our financial life with more grace and compassion for myself. And how I decided, um, you know, I I think that this is probably important. I don't think I could articulate it until many years later, but while I was working at a job that, didn't light me up, I think I was waiting to have an epiphany
Mhm.
that, one day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to know what it is that I'm supposed to do instead. And when I know what that is, I'll do it. But until then, like, I almost felt like I didn't deserve it
Mm.
because I didn't have the answer. But what do you want to do instead? I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
there wasn't a name to it yet in your own mind,
Yeah, I mean, I didn't
Yeah,
even know it existed, of course, but I also don't think I would have found it ever by waiting to wake
yeah,
up and
that's
and know what
right.
it was. So I think the way I left was in small steps. I left by just saying no to things that didn't align, even while I
Hmm.
was still there. And I think
Beautiful.
all of those small no's and all of those sort of small redirections towards, starting on another path, even if I didn't know what it was, eventually led to me saying, okay, I'm ready. I just don't want to do this anymore. And it's okay, even if I don't know what I want to do instead.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think waiting for things to be definitively revealed is
Mhm.
can cost you a lot.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage actually to just step out, And I know you did that wisely. Like you didn't just walk in and quit your job all of a sudden in a huff, right?
No.
Um, yeah. And so that's what we always tell people too, clients included, don't blow up the ranch,
Mhm.
be wise and small steps toward whatever that is certainly the better part of wisdom unless you have an infinite amount of money and you don't have to worry about that. So, and then how long did it take before you felt like, okay, this is it and I'm going to make enough money and I can do this and I can thrive? How long did that take?
Well, I guess this is really personal to me. Everybody works through goals differently or their relationship to goals. Another thing I've learned about myself is that I don't like having goals. I actually thrive without them. Which is
A
another
creator
reason I think
artist to me.
another reason corporate America just, it wasn't the best fit, right? Because there's a lot of metrics and a lot of goals that somebody else
Sure,
is
sure.
giving you. So for me, it was really like for the first time in my life, removing all expectation of myself in a way that I never had before. So we rearranged our financial life so that I could explore.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the certainty that I had to keep going, why I knew it was the right path, was just from the first time I had, my first training sessions with you, Deborah. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think that certainty that you're doing exactly what you know you are meant to do and that it's needed,
Hmm.
right, is I just kept going.
Yeah. Well, I'm I'm very, very um, impressed with your courage and also how you made such a big archetypal switch, because you were major heavy duty warrior and then you stepped into more of the creator artist magician. But I know that warrior hat's still there and you're using
Oh,
it
yeah.
because you have those skills. They're part of who you are. They follow you, so it's not like those were abandoned in the process, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I actually remember this from the training when I did my first we were doing like looking at the quiz results and looking at the archetype profile. And of course it's a snapshot of a moment of time of self-assessment, right? But I had a 0 for the fool. And I remember you saying like, "Oh, we might want to like increase that a little bit, right? And like in some way, like
And you
nurture
were
it."
shocked, I remember.
Sorry?
You were shocked a bit by
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it was a moment for you where I was like, "Oh, yeah, like impulsivity and like adventure, right? Like it's not all a negative. Like of course not." And so pursuing more balance, right, rather than just being a warrior and being so focused on that was really
That's
helpful.
right. Yeah, and I often find that people who have very, very strong warrior, like the highest warrior scores, um, and especially if there's a little wing of the martyr in there too, that tends towards self-sacrifice and doing the right actions. And so it's
Hmm.
constantly like what I'm supposed to do and who I'm supposed to be.
Yep.
And when you bring in a little element of the fool, you give the person permission
Hmm.
to allow for what might be.
Yeah.
Because
So
the fool
exactly.
archetype is actually a bit of an opportunist, right?
Hmm.
So they can go in and go, well, what opportunities might be there for me?
Hmm.
What could I explore? And they're explorers and they're adventurers. So when you bring just a little bit of that, we don't like it to be too much because that moves to the other side of
Sure.
leaks everywhere and over impulsivity. But you did a great job of bringing that in.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
You
I
did
I
a
needed
great
it
job.
for sure. For that balance.
So, what would you say that, I don't know when the last time you took did your own money type scores, but what do you think the primary archetypes are that are running uh, for you, essentially the overall patterning archetypally that sort of that you're most drawn to and that you feel is most present for you?
In my own
Hmm.
financial life. Um, yeah, I think you probably said it. Is probably the warrior, the creative artist, and the magician.
Sure.
I had a lot of innocent, surprisingly, or at least it's surprising to me when I
Hmm.
first realized it, in my personal financial life when I was an accountant, because I was out of balance. So I was
Hmm.
such a warrior at work and like really literally doing what I would do at home, but for
Right.
my company, the company I was working for, that I didn't want to pay a bill. I didn't want to look at a credit card statement. Like they were all
Hmm.
being paid, there was cash in the account, but I was not keeping an eye on it whatsoever. And that totally changed when I changed my career and went into money coaching.
Yeah, it sounds like you had so much even burnout from the
Exactly.
sense of responsibility when you were an accountant that you didn't want to have to carry that
Hmm.
personally too. And I do see a lot of that with clients as well.
Yeah.
They'll just go, I don't want to handle it. I handle these things all day long. I am so responsible. And then when they get
Yeah.
home, they're like, no, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Of course, we have those subconscious blocks that are part and parcel to that challenge, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. My husband would ask, like, can we put together a budget? I'd be like, no, I don't want that.
Go ask another accountant to do that.
Yeah.
But that's
So
different now, I'm sure, for you.
yeah, now I use the same budget file that I give my clients.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Are you still doing any accounting, or do you mostly do the coaching stuff?
So I would call it's all within my coaching practice, but I would say some days with some clients who are at a certain stage of our work, it could be considered accounting work, but I'm not actively using my CPA
Okay,
license.
beautiful. So tell me a little bit about what you began to observe in your clients relative to money coaching in your practice. What is there a story or somebody as an example or just in general, whichever you prefer, that you could say has been the biggest impact the work has had on them?
Hmm. Um, like somebody who's had a big
Yeah,
breakthrough
breakthrough,
through
something
the
that really
work.
comes to mind where you were just incredibly happy at the transformation. And I know that may happen frequently. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in one way, I think anytime that somebody, shows up to a session and really was able to enact something that we talked about, and is excited about it, it lights me up too, of course, and it's why I do what I do. In a more like long-term journey kind of way, seeing somebody go from credit card debt where they're struggling to pay the minimum, they're struggling to pay their bills, they don't have emergency savings,
mhm,
they're scared, they're anxious all the time. To
yeah.
see somebody like that go to paying off all of their credit card debt, having money in emergency savings, and feeling like they really understand where their money is going and they're confident doesn't
Hmm.
mean things don't happen. It doesn't mean someone doesn't, get laid off or their car breaks down, right? But they have so much more confidence and self-trust, and money in the bank to handle the problem. That is, extremely wonderful to see.
Satisfying. Speaking of that, there are all kinds of professionals out there, including financial coaches, financial therapy, and of course, we've been at this longer than anybody. And I'm really interested in seeing what other people are doing these days. And I'm shocked at how big the world of financial coaching has become, even more so than money coaching.
Mm,
And they're pretty much just, for the most part, looking at the numbers and the
mhm,
practical side, right? And by all means, that's important, and we are advocates of that too. But what I have found, and the research supports this solidly, is that you can do all that practical stuff and give the best possible plan, the budget, you name it, bells and whistles, practically to help somebody. But if they don't do the behavioral, if they don't understand themselves and they haven't processed around those patterns and emotions that are sort of subconsciously driving the entire system,
Mhm.
that the practical stuff is not, it just falls off in about anywhere from 3 to 6 months. It's not
Mhm.
sustainable. So I'm curious about, how you've seen that and what your perspective is, because, you've got 6 years under your belt. So what does
Mhm.
that look like for you?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. To the point where I have had consultations with folks who, and there's an urgency to
Mhm.
why they want to dive right into the numbers. They're like, they have something really urgent that they need to address, and they'll say, can we go back to that later? Can we skip that part? And I'll say, I'm sorry, but I don't think I'm the right match for you because I know that what I can offer you will work
Mhm.
if you'll start with me, from the
Mhm.
beginning. We need to understand who you are and why you do what you do, and then we can get there. But I totally agree with you that starting with the practical is, putting the horse before the cart before the horse. You know what I mean?
Right, right. The cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is a bit heartbreaking to me too, because a lot of those programs are relatively expensive, and because they often will say, "Oh yeah, we deal with the behavioral side of money," but it's still, when you drill down and you look at it, it's mostly behaviors related to the practical stuff, not behaviors
Hmm.
related to the inside, which is driving everything, right? And in largely even subconsciously. So if you can't name it, you can't change it. And I often feel bad for people in the general public, which is really why I like to have these conversations, that they understand it's great that people want to do that. But if they don't have a better understanding and haven't really gone the distance, and really it's a journey to healing your relationship with money, I find it they're right back, and then they even feel worse because they spent all that time and money, and they're really right back to square one in many cases, especially
Yeah.
if they don't have a good warrior. If they don't have a good warrior, it is almost an unsustainable prospect.
Yeah, I mean, I would totally agree. As you said that part at the end about spending a lot of money, it reminded me of one client I had that while we were working together, she was on a payment plan paying off a package from a previous financial coach, right? Like while we were working together. So those things do happen. I often give the comparison of nutrition sometimes to make the point because I think there are so many um,
Hmm.
comparisons between our relationship to money and our relationship with nutrition. So I might say, you can go to a nutritionist and you can get one piece of paper that says, this is how to eat, right? These are what balanced meals look like. This is how many calories you should have every day. Go do that, right? And you might do that for 72 hours and then that's it because you haven't taken the time to understand why you have the food habits you have. And I think it's the same with money.
Yeah, we're actually developing a program now with a woman who I've known for many years who's trained as a money coach, but she's also a registered dietitian, and she has a
Mm.
specialty in eating disorders.
Hmm.
And the research is really interesting. The same kinds of behaviors and challenges that we have around food are the same with money. Of course, there's a different flavor, no pun intended, but the fact is there's appears to be a crosswire in the brain where the need and desire for money things crosswires with the need and desire for food.
Yeah.
And that can create a whole realm of challenges. And what brought me to that understanding was in one classroom last year, I had 3 coaches who had food and money issues themselves.
Hmm.
And when we looked at the patterns, they were almost identical. And
Hmm.
they were caused by the same sort of emotional challenges that they had and observed in their money bio. There was an overlay to the food stuff. So
Hmm.
we're going to be bringing that out in the future. But I think, that's an area too to explore with your own clients. People with food issues often need money coaching. In fact, I had one client who came to me and said, I need you to know in advance, I have a serious eating disorder. And I am pretty certain my food and money issues are related. And I thought that was fascinating because this was 15 years ago when I didn't have as much experience or knowledge, especially relative to the neurodynamics. And so she already knew for herself. So,
Mhm.
you might even start inquiring with people yourself around that if you have any interest in that area.
Yeah, I think I'd be interested in whatever, research or training comes out of whatever you're relating to. I often with food, if somebody is naming an eating disorder, I will often try to stay within my scope of
Sure,
money
of
just because
course.
I'm not trained there. But if I do find something that comes up that seems to be a strong connection, I will, just invite them to discuss it with, often my clients are also
Absolutely.
in therapy because they work really well together. I will encourage, if it's your choice to take this out of here and into
Mhm.
your therapeutic relationship, that might really benefit you. That's usually how I'll handle that.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we do it here too. And the reason we're bringing a specific thing in now is that I'm seeing this issue rise more. I don't know
Mhm.
why it's rising, but I try to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on with people. And when there's a need, find a way to fill it. But we will
Yeah,
never be the person who deals with the more psychological aspects of an eating disorder. It's more
right.
looking at it in context to the patterning and staying in the lane of the money coaching. So that's so when you are also doing yoga and you're
Mhm.
talking to your people about that, obviously you're trained in the yoga field as well, and we're looking at the physical aspects, but do you ever notice, you know, whether or not in the yoga community you see a higher incidence of innocent creator artists in particular? Have you noticed that?
Um, I would say yes.
Mhm.
It's informal. I don't have a lot of clients that are yoga teachers, but I do think the helping professions, right? And I do think yoga is a helping and
Sure.
healing
Yeah.
profession. I often think the helping professions do struggle with the innocent and the creator artist. So I would say in like, in personal, casual conversation, I do see it come up and I try to encourage, your work matters, it deserves value. I think that is a big struggle with helping professions, right? It's like, I want to help
Yeah,
people.
you can't trade everything because you're afraid to ask. And that's
Right.
what you see a lot, right? People can get really fearful to even stake a claim that I can charge this
Hmm.
and feel like it's okay, right?
Yeah. It's like, I should just want to help.
That's right.
So that's something that I've seen common to kind of soften on and unravel.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not either or, it's both and, right?
Yeah.
And we have to find a way to sustain ourselves if we're going to give your gift. And if you can't sustain yourself, then that pretty much challenges you to be able to continue to be that even.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say the one thing that you wish people knew about money coaching and doing work like this? What would you like to impart to those who might be listening?
Mm. Well, I mean, I guess the first thing, I guess whoever's listening probably by now knows what money coaching is. But
Of course.
that's really the number one thing I'd like to impart is that more people know that this work is out there, right? That people are trained and ready to help them heal their relationship with money. And then, once there's that knowledge there, it's that um, I believe that everyone is capable of healing their relationship with money and
Mhm.
creating financial safety and wellness for themselves, no matter their situation, no matter how they feel, how they would rate their own financial literacy, right? Like, I think everyone is capable of that transformation if they want to show up and do the work.
That's right. And it's not always easy, but it is absolutely worth every bit of the journey.
Yeah. It's not easy. I think it's hard. I think it's courageous and hard, but possible.
So I wanted to just thank you for your time and for this conversation. And also, if you don't mind, just tell everybody the best way to reach you, to connect with you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed
You're
this
welcome.
conversation so much. And yeah, I people can follow me on Instagram at Money Coach Tammy, and my website is tammyshweiger.com, so they can read more about mindful money coaching there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation and I wish you all the best luck. Thank you.